Serious, bullies who felt bad for what you did and eventually tried to say sorry. How did it go? Saw a girl I'd been a big dick to in high school recently. After about 13 years of not seeing her, I recognized her. She recognized me. There was an awkward moment where we both pretended that we didn't recognize each other. But I decided to just buck up and do the right thing. Went over to her and said, "Hey. I don't know if you remember me very well, but I was sort of a big dick to you in high school and I'm really sorry. You didn't deserve any of that. I don't know what was wrong with me." She got this confused look, then smiled really big and said, "You were a big dick. You were awful to me. Thanks for saying that." Then she introduced me to her fiance and I got some wedding details and congratulated her, and that was pretty much it. Me and almost the whole 3 classes of our year bullied this kid for a long time. Probably for 6-7 years. Maybe not every day by everyone, but it was consistent from 1st grade to the 6th, 7th. About 8 years ago that person suddenly pops up as a suggested friend on Facebook and it all came back to me. Since I hadn't really thought about it for years. Man, I felt like a piece of shit. I sent the guy a friend request and a message and wrote him that I was sorry. Listed the things that I remembered I did to him and asked him if there was anything else that I didn't remember that I did to him. He said that he forgave me and that I wasn't the first one to talk to him about it. This guy is doing really good today. Has many friends. Loves his job and is in such a good shape it makes me feel embarrassed. I'm really happy that he is doing so well. But even though he said it was okay and it was forgiven, I still feel like a piece of shit when I think back to it. This isn't something that happened later, it was fixed then. When I was much younger, I remember I was a bully to another kid in school. I'd be mean and call him ugly in front of my other friends. He lived pretty close by and one day his parents came over with him and told my parents how I'd been bullying him during school. I'm glad that happened. We ended up playing video games that day and getting along. This was about the time my parents divorced and I moved away and never saw him again. But I'm glad I was called out then on my behavior and was able to fix it. I didn't bully this girl. I thought she was sweet and was fairly close to her. However, in high school there was this girl who was bullied by a lot of people. She was a strong girl and got through it, but the bullying was rather bad. 5 years after high school she was diagnosed with a rare terminal cancer. Being in a small town, everyone knew everyone. Everyone who was mean to her all of a sudden was really nice to her, sending her loads of messages apologizing. And after she died, more or less everyone who was mean to her felt tremendous guilt for making her high school years hell. She thought it was better to love than hate and forgave them, but she hated the fact they were apologizing because she was dying. Edit. After high school she was happy. She had a loving boyfriend right to the end and good friends and family. Just so you all know, it wasn't all sad. Edit 2. Thank you all for your love in the comments. I had a friend in grade school and we were always horsing around. Wrestling. etc. We ended up going to different high schools and I didn't see him for years until we were both at a forensics tournament in high school. I was excited to see him. But he introduced me to his friends as the guy who used to bully me in grade school. I was sad that day. I may have cried a little. Edit. I did apologize. But he just brushed it off. Didn't seem to care. Never saw him again. Long story short, bullied my younger sister mercilessly for her size when we were younger. Aged out of doing that around 13-14 years old. Was 16 or 17 when I realized how mean I had been and knew it was time to apologize when I realized that it physically hurt me thinking about the way I had treated her. I love her so much. So I apologized and it was so ranty and redundant, but she accepted it and I've tried to be a good friend and a great brother ever since. For some reason her quiet smile and acceptance of my apology made me feel even worse. No idea why there was this 3-year or so window in my childhood where I behaved that way. She and I are in our 20s now and I step outside of work most days to call her and tell her I love her. I was usually the one bullied. But this instance I became to bully and felt really badly for it. When I was in 10th grade, an older guy in the school took interest in me and we started dating. He was popular and I was not. His friends constantly made fun of him for dating me. His ex-girlfriend who was in the same school happened to be a popular cheerleader and she was very pretty and liked. I wanted to be her so badly. I felt insecure. So I started calling her names anytime I seen her. I would yell her or something when she walked by. Really immature sheet. The next school year she was handing out flyers for the first day of school. And I went up to her and sincerely apologized. I told her I was jealous of her and I was acting ridiculous and that I hoped I didn't cause her too much shit. She graciously accepted the apology and we never had an issue after that. What made me feel worse was she never tried to be mean to me back. She was always kind no matter how I treated her. She deserved the apology. I said sorry. He said he didn't care then and doesn't care now. We're good friends now and are going to see Metallica in a couple months. My bully all through middle and high school sent me a FB message during college when Glee was airing and apologized for outing me to random people. Bullying me for being a les. And treating my then girlfriend like shit. Apparently the show made her feel horrible about what she did. And as a random bizarre cherry on top she also apologized for making fun of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Which in the face of everything else she did I completely forgot about. What I did wasn't necessarily bullying. But I wronged someone in high school. I thought about it a lot and years later I apologized to the person via Messenger. I didn't have another way to contact her. It was marked read but she never responded. She eventually unfriended me on Facebook so I suppose I was not forgiven. I have come to terms with what I did though. I try to be a better person now. For them to forgive you is up to them. It is not necessary for them to forgive you. It is also selfish to expect them to forgive after apologizing. You really don't know the harm that you've caused a person. The only way to right this wrong is vow to never be that person you were when you wronged her. Be better in honor of that person. Do good and be good. Don't let the hurt you caused her be in vain. Learn and grow from it. There was one kid in particular that got bullied quite a lot in my grade between middle and high school. I definitely contributed early on, maybe 7th 9th grade. But realized I was just being a big dig like everyone else and laid off him. By the time I figured out I should apologize to him he had moved. By this point I was in 11th grade. And felt pretty guilty about the whole thing. Eventually met a kid 2 grades below me who got even more shit than the other kid ever got and went out of my way to be nice to him. He was really weird. But he deserved compassion. He continued to get shit from people after I graduated and moved on to college. But last I heard he's doing really well for himself in adulthood. Just because you owe someone an apology doesn't mean they owe you their forgiveness. This is what I'm thinking. But people who get shut down won't share their stories. I was bullied in 8th grade. Then I met one of them in 11th and he seemed less angry and tried to say hi. I thought duck him. I don't owe him shit so I ignored him. He made a whole year for me unbearable. Saying sorry doesn't change that. I didn't bully them. Percent. I never outwardly made fun of her or picked on her. But I was really rude and exclusive. It was clear she was lonely and just wanted friends. But anytime she tried to approach me or my friends, and while I didn't have many either, we would ignore her or just stop talking until she went away or we would leave. I messaged her on Facebook last year and apologized. She told me that she didn't forgive me because while I was being mean to her, she was being bullied and traumatized at home and she was still hurt by the way I treated her. It kind of threw me off because, while I didn't necessarily expect her to forgive me or become my best friend, I didn't realize how much my rudeness hurt her. I mean, it's to the point that she still is living with it 15 years later. Throughout school there was this kid that I was friends with off and on. I wasn't a popular kid myself and got harassed often. But this other kid was mercilessly bullied all day long. I never stood up for him. Never spoke out about what was happening. And never helped him. He disappeared for the last 2 years of high school and no one knew where he went. A few months before graduation, I was walking down a hall in school and he walked by. I said hi and asked how he was. Actually happy to see him. but he gave me a nasty look back and asked why I cared. I don't remember the whole conversation, but I remember it ended with me saying that I never did anything to him. He replied, "Yeah, but you didn't do anything to stop it either." He walked off and I never saw him again. It always stuck with me and it is one of my only regrets. When I was 21, I was working at a local restaurant as a bartender when his parents walked in and sat down. We started talking and they caught me up on their son's life. I then told them about what happened during school when we were younger and asked them to pass on my apology. That's the closest I think I'll ever get. He doesn't have any social media accounts that I can find, and last I heard he lived in another country. The lesson I learned from him is that bullying isn't just about the actions taken against a victim. It's also the inaction from those that have the ability to intervene. I wouldn't say I bullied this kid, but I definitely didn't stand up for him when the opportunity arose various times. Until I finally did. He unknowingly would push people's buttons and they would start to take it way too far. He got bullied a lot throughout high school. But I had grew up with him and he lived on the same street as me and he was a normal kid who liked video games and other stuff. He always acted different at school than he did when he was at home for some reason, and people would attack him consistently with verbal abuse. I had a class with him our senior year of high school and I thought enough was enough. I was considered one of the more popular kids in the class, and I chose him to be my partner for every project. People started to treat him differently. One person I clearly remember was this girl who ended up having a crush on me. She kind of verbally attacked him one day, and after she realized I was a friend to him, she treated him differently. We're in our early 20s now and I've moved to a different state, but he seems like he's doing pretty good. I'll talk to him if I see him when I visit, and from Facebook it looks like he has developed a really good inner circle of friends and is in a good spot. Recently did just that with a friend who I was a tremendous asshole to for a while. Hadn't spoken in almost a decade. Reached out. Decided to meet up. Ended up partying together. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if we'll ever fully reconnect, but it was nice to have things be more positive. Being the victim of bullying. A few years after I moved, I ran into someone who repeatedly bullied me, who tried to spark up conversation like we were friends, not even acknowledging how they had been at all. I told them to duck themselves. That was the only encounter I had with a previous bully. Had 3 dorm roommates. One that was never around. One who was my best friend. And another one who was an interesting character who we hung out with. We would always bust each other's gonads and joke around, which I thought was in good fun, until I heard him over the phone complaining to his mom about me. I sat down with him later that day and apologized for making him feel bad. Didn't realize it, and promised I wouldn't joke around with him anymore like that. He accepted my apology, and although we didn't stay friends, every time I saw him after moving out of the dorms I made sure to say hi and have a good conversation with him. I hope he knows I didn't mean to be such a big dick. I realized after we moved out that he got made fun of pretty hard at his high school and didn't have many friends. He started a Facebook and had to leave because he still got bullied by kids at his old school. I hope wherever he is he's doing better by now. Kinda late, but I really bullied this girl in junior high. I called her horrible names. I told her the meanest things, and overall was a total asshole. We fought 4 years before we parted ways in high school. At that point, I realized, wow, I was an asshole. So I messaged her, told her I was sorry for being such a dickhead, asked if she'd wanna hang out sometime. We got back to hanging out and talking without fighting, supporting each other. She went from my sworn enemy to my best duck-in friend. She's both my best friend and my girlfriend, and I couldn't be happier with the way things turned out. Today's her birthday and we're going to celebrate together. I'm unbelievably grateful she forgave me, because I honestly don't know where I'd be without her. I wasn't the bully, but was picked on by this one dude for being friends with this group of mostly girls that hung out next to my group of friends. We're all guys on campus in high school. I would always go back and forth between the two groups to chat and hang out. The dude always wanted to say dumb shit or pick a fight or something, to which I never let happen. Basically just ignored him, and anytime that group of girls and their friends would invite me places, he would show up once in a while. There was one point, for whatever reason, he started spreading a rumor I wanted to grape one of the girls in particular. I was always nice to the girl. Her friends and I hung quite a bit outside school, but I never hit on this girl in particular. I was more interested in one of their other friends, but never really acted on any of it because the girl I liked basically shot me down and I stopped trying to make moves on her. Anyways, once I heard that rumor, I went straight to a school counselor and let him know what was being done and said that I had no intention of that. Next thing I know, her and I are both brought in with our parents to have it straightened out and let her know none of it's true, and she forgave me and we remained friends. The guy never bothered with me again after that, though I heard through friends he was pissed about getting told on for spreading that rumor. I bullied a bully, so I guess that doesn't make me anything less than a bully. After I was done with high school, this sense kicked into me. I called up the original bully and apologized to him, saying that I am sorry for what I did back in school. I was young, big dig, and thought it was cool, but I am really sorry. He was like, no man, it's all cool. Don't worry about it, and all. We met after that and were good friends. Fast forward 2 years, I meet the guy who was bullied by the original bully. We are catching up and he tells me that original bully called me last year and apologized for what he did back in school. This dude was very surprised by this gesture. I was surprised too, but it followed by a really good feeling. I don't recommend doing this, but I deserved what happened to me. I messed with this one kid in our youth group for a while. He was much bigger than me. Finally, one day he snaps and beat me up with a tree branch. We became friends afterward and I didn't mess with him anymore. Again, I don't recommend beating up your bully, but it sure put me in my place when that kid did. I was really mean to this girl in high school, mainly because she played dumb, though she wasn't. It drove me up the wall and I would take every opportunity to point it out to others in front of her. Fast forward to 2017. We had been friends on Facebook for a few years and saw her posting some stuff about going through a hard time. I commented on her post, knowing she probably would see my name pop up and assume I was trying to bash on her. Instead, she messaged me saying thank you for the resources. I proceeded to tell her you're welcome and that I mentioned that I was sorry for being so hard on her during school and listed specific events. I took complete ownership and responsibility of my lack of compassion and actions. She was very thankful. And in the end she said she didn't think anyone would have liked her if she had been her smart self. My mom bullied one girl in high school, and shortly after we moved down to where she grew up, she got in touch with the lady. She had forgiven my mother long ago and took us out to Cracker Barrel to kinda catch up, I guess. It's been 12 years or so, and mom's not around to clear up details. On the way home, that woman got in a car accident and died because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I used to be annoyed by this one girl all the time because she was, well, annoying. She thought we were friends and always tried to be around me because I wasn't outrightly rude to her. Eventually I got fed up with it and started being rude to her, hoping she would leave me alone. This went on 4 years and she was never mean to me once. Years passed and I fell head over heels for a boy who made me feel just awful. Unrelated, but I had a revelation. I was very unintentionally mean to other kids when I was growing up, and to this day I'm still not sure why I was like that. My thoughts went back to her. I sent her a lengthy message back when I had a Facebook and apologized for the way I treated her. About a year later my life took a dark turn very quickly and she was the only one there for me when all my friends abandoned me. She was my best friend for about 7 years. Last year, after a couple of years of being the only one trying to maintain the friendship, it finally died. I loved her like the sister I've always wanted. There's people you would die for, but dying's easy. I would have killed for that girl. God knows I've cried. Incredibly minor compared to a lot of people in this thread, but I did once get chewed up about something I said as a teenager that was somewhat homophobic. I apologized for it after what turned out to be far too long. The person didn't even remember and thought it was silly that I'd even bother to bring it up. Made me feel better. At least. On the first day of 8th grade I noticed a new kid in school. And for whatever reason I bullied him. Called him short, fat, ugly, whatever I could think of to get under his skin. It got old after a while and it came to an end. But he never held a grudge. Come freshman year we're on the same football team and I could barely stand to be in the same room with him. I was so ashamed. I mustered up some courage and apologized. He invited me to hang out after school that day. Turns out we had a lot in common and came from very similar families. We've been like brothers ever since. I'll be the best man at his wedding in September. I went to high school with a guy that I ended up working with for a few years. I wouldn't say my group of friends were bullies, but we definitely gave some people a hard time. And we also had people that gave us a hard time. But when I was working with this guy, he told me a story of how one of my buddies drew some inappropriate things on his book bag. He wasn't the type to draw on his book bag, so this thing stuck out like a sore thumb. So he drew a large black box over top of it to cover it up. He went on to tell me that he hated every second of high school because of stuff like that, and he started talking about how he had considered suicide in high school, and it sounded like that book bag situation was part of that. It really hit me hard. Because I had been in situations like that, and it hurt to know that my group of friends was the reason for someone else to think that way. So I apologized to him and let him know that if I'd done anything like that to him to make him feel bad, that I was sorry. It was super awkward, but he kind of nodded, and after that we were a lot closer. He was one of my better work friends after that, and it was never brought up again. I don't know if it meant more for him or for me. But I'm glad I could apologize. Even if that specific situation wasn't about me. I bullied a kid in middle school for being chubby and trying to intrude in my friend group. Sounds ridiculous now. I know. Around senior year of high school we became close friends without a proper apology. Today I am 22 and he's my roommate. The best friend I could ask for. I'm the chubby one now. There was this girl at my school. Jess. She was mentally challenged and I bullied her throughout the 3rd, 4th grade. I would flat tire her and spread rumors about her. The worst things is that when we would flat tire her, she wouldn't care and would always accept my apology. Then one day, I remember thinking that this wasn't okay and started being nice to her, yelling and even fighting people who made fun of her. She ended being my best friend for a couple years. She was so nice and fun to be with. I haven't seen her in about 10 years, but I hope she's well. It wasn't bullying so much. But this one guy had this catchphrase, "You suck." And probably used it more than my name. He didn't even seem to dislike me. But he did seem to have a bit of disdain. Anyway, years later I said hi on Facebook. Figuring he'd grown out of it. Nope. Well. What can you do? I had a bully in 8th grade who made my life hell. He was a popular kid who turned everyone against me. It started when his brother spit in my face, so I pushed him down. I know, duck me, right? He kept trying to attack me and getting his friends to do the same for the rest of the year until I moved. Fast forward 20 years and I was in the Sally Port waiting my turn to drop off someone I arrested. I saw my old bully get out of the van that is used to take prisoners to court. I gave him a wave and he gave me the finger. How times have changed. I also found out his brother is also a gang member. I had a look in one of his files and there are the world's supply of pictures in there of him dressed from head to toe in red with gang tattoos. I would think he would have aged out, but he's a gang member in his early 30s. I guess some people never stop being bullies. Edit. Spelling.